My wife Helena always smiled when she left for work. Every morning at 7:15 sharp, she'd grab her coffee mug, check her reflection in the hallway mirror, and flash that perfect smile before walking out our front door. For 3 years of marriage, I thought that smile was for me. I'm Beck, and I run a maintenance company here in Millbrook, Maine. Nothing fancy, just me and 2 guys fixing broken pipes and faulty wiring for folks who can't afford the big corporate outfits. Helena works as a project manager at Vanton Logistics, the biggest shipping company in the county. She makes 3 times what I do, drives a BMW, and never lets me forget either fact. This particular Tuesday morning started like any other. Rain hammered our roof while I nursed my second cup of coffee and watched Helena perform her daily routine. She wore her navy business suit, the one that cost more than my monthly truck payment. "Another exciting day managing freight schedules?" I asked, trying to sound interested. "You wouldn't understand the complexities, Beck." She didn't even look at me. Some of us have careers that actually matter. There it was, that subtle dig she'd perfected over the past year. Helena had developed this talent for making me feel small without technically saying anything wrong. If I called her out, she'd claim I was being sensitive. "Right. Well, I'll be fixing Mrs. Patterson's furnace today, keeping people warm, pretty complex stuff." Helena finally turned toward me, and there it was, that smile, bright, practiced, and completely hollow. "That's nice, honey. I'll be late tonight. Big presentation tomorrow." She'd been having a lot of late nights recently. Big presentations, client dinners, strategy sessions. The corporate world sure demanded a lot of evening hours. I watched her grab her keys and head for the door. "Drive safe," I called out. "Always do." Another smile, this one over her shoulder. Then she was gone, leaving only the scent of her expensive perfume and the sound of her BMW starting in our driveway. Something felt wrong, not just the usual wrongness of a marriage slowly falling apart, but something specific, sharp, like a splinter working its way deeper under your skin. I'd been having this feeling for weeks now. Helena's late nights, her sudden interest in working out, the way she'd started keeping her phone face down during dinner. Classic signs, according to every article I'd ever read about cheating spouses. But Helena was too smart for obvious affairs, too careful, or so I thought. My phone buzzed, text from my buddy Sid Morrison, who runs a private investigation business out of his garage. "Coffee at Rafe's in an hour? Got something to show you." Sid had been my sergeant back when I was doing engineering work for the Army. We'd served 2 tours together, and he was one of the few people in Millbrook who knew me before Helena transformed me into her domesticated underachiever. I grabbed my jacket and headed out into the rain. Rafe's Tavern sat on the corner of Main and Industrial, a working-class bar that opened early for the shift workers heading home and the insomniacs like me who needed somewhere to think. Rafe himself was behind the bar, a 60-year-old former longshoreman with arms like tree trunks and a memory for gossip that would make a small-town newspaper jealous. "Morning, Beck. Coffee's fresh." "Thanks, Rafe." I slid onto my usual stool. "Seen Sid?" "He's in the back booth. Looks serious." I found Sid hunched over his laptop, wearing the expression he used to get before briefing us on dangerous missions. He looked up when I approached. "Beck, sit down." "What's going on?" Sid turned his laptop screen toward me. "Remember how you mentioned Helena's been working late? Well, I was doing surveillance on an insurance fraud case near the warehouse district yesterday. Caught something interesting on camera." The screen showed grainy footage from what looked like a parking lot. Timestamp read 6:47 p.m. Monday evening. I watched a familiar BMW pull into frame. "That's Helena's car. Keep watching." The driver's door opened, and Helena stepped out. But instead of heading toward any office building, she walked toward a man leaning against a black Mercedes. Even in the grainy footage, I recognized him immediately. Orion Vanton, Helena's boss, regional director of Vanton Logistics, and the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and treated everyone else like servants. On screen, Helena walked straight into his arms. Not a professional hug, not a friendly embrace. The kind of kiss that leaves no doubt about what's happening. "How long have you been watching them?" My voice sounded strange, distant. This was accidental, but after I saw it, I did some checking. They've been meeting at that same spot every Monday and Wednesday for at least 3 weeks. Sometimes they go into the warehouse. Sometimes they just talk in his car. I stared at the screen, watching my wife betray our marriage in high definition. The worst part wasn't the cheating, it was how happy she looked. More animated and alive than I'd seen her in months. "There's more," Sid said quietly. I ran some basic background checks on Vanton. Guy's been married twice, both ended in messy divorces. Word is he likes to mix business with pleasure, if you know what I mean. Helena's not his first employee. Probably not his last either. I sat back in the booth, processing this information. 3 years of marriage, and she'd been sneaking around with her boss like some cliché office romance. All those late nights, all those important meetings, lies, every one of them. "What are you going to do?" Sid asked. That was the question, wasn't it? The old Beck might have confronted Helena directly, demanded explanations, maybe tried to save the marriage. But watching that footage had crystallized something for me. Helena hadn't just cheated, she'd been systematically dismantling my self-respect for months, making me feel like a failure while she played house with her corporate boyfriend. "I'm going to be smart about this," I said finally. "Helena thinks she's the clever one in this relationship. Time to prove her wrong." Sid grinned. "Now you're talking. What do you need?" "Everything you can get on Vanton. Financial records, employment history, personal life, and I want to know exactly when and where they're meeting." "Consider it done. But Beck, be careful. Guys like Vanton don't play fair when they're cornered. Neither do guys like me when they're angry. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." I drove home through the rain, my mind already working through possibilities. Helena had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated me. For months, she'd been treating me like I was too stupid to notice her lies, too weak to do anything about them. She was about to learn otherwise. Back home, I sat in my workshop behind the house, surrounded by the tools and equipment that had built my small business. Helena always called it my man cave, another subtle put-down disguised as affection. But this space represented something she'd never understand: honest work, problems with real solutions, and the satisfaction of fixing things that were broken. Unlike my marriage, which was apparently beyond repair. I pulled out my laptop and started making lists. If I was going to take down Helena and her boyfriend, I needed to approach this like a military operation. Gather intelligence, identify weaknesses, plan multiple contingencies. First priority, documentation. I needed proof of the affair that would hold up in divorce court. Sid's surveillance footage was a good start, but I needed more. Second, financial records. Helena handled most of our money, claiming she was better with budgets and investments. I'd been happy to let her manage things, but now I wondered what she'd been hiding. Third, understand the enemy. Orion Vanton was clearly the type of man who thought his money and position made him untouchable. Men like that always had secrets. My phone rang. "Helena." "Hey," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Hi, honey. Listen, I'm going to be even later tonight than I thought. This presentation is turning into a nightmare." "What kind of presentation requires working until 10 p.m.? A slight pause. "It's complicated. Logistics stuff. You wouldn't be interested." There it was again, the casual dismissal. Helena had perfected the art of making me feel stupid without technically insulting me. "Right. Well, I'll save you some dinner." "Don't bother. I'll grab something here." With Orion, no doubt. "Okay. Love you." "You too. Bye." The line went quiet. Not even a proper goodbye. I spent the next hour going through our financial records, looking for anything unusual. Helena had always been secretive about money, claiming it was for our own good. "You focus on your little business, Beck. I'll handle the real finances." What I found made my stomach turn. Helena had been moving money around for months. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. But the amounts had been growing. Last week, she'd moved $3,000 to the same mystery account. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar. Every transfer happened on days when Helena claimed to be working late. My phone buzzed. Text from Sid. "Got some intel on your boy Vanton. Free for a beer?" 20 minutes later, I was back at Rafe's. The evening crowd was starting to filter in. Construction workers, dock workers, the kind of people who actually worked for a living instead of shuffling papers and calling it strategy. Sid had claimed a corner table and was nursing a beer. He looked excited, the way he used to get when he'd uncovered something important during our military days. "Your wife's boyfriend is a piece of work," he said without preamble. "Tell me something I don't know." Orion Vanton, age 42, divorced twice like I mentioned. But here's the interesting part. Both ex-wives filed restraining orders during their divorce proceedings. Violent? Not physically. Financial intimidation. Guy likes to use his money and connections to make life difficult for people who cross him. First wife claimed he had her fired from her job. Second wife said he sabotaged her credit rating. I absorbed this information. So he's a bully. Gets better. I did some digging into Vanton Logistics. Company's been having financial problems for the past year. They're facing a major audit next month, and word is the books don't add up. Embezzlement? That's my guess. And if Vanton's been skimming money, he might need a fall guy. The implications hit me like a punch to the gut. Helena handles project budgets. Exactly. Perfect person to blame if money starts disappearing. I thought about those mysterious transfers from our account. What if she's not just having an affair? What if she's helping him steal money? Sid leaned forward. "Now you're thinking like a soldier again. But we need proof." "I might have some. Helena's been moving our money around. Small amounts, but consistent. Could be innocent. Could be her contribution to their little scheme." Rafe appeared at our table with fresh beers. "You boys look serious tonight. Everything okay?" Rafe had been running this place for 20 years. He knew everyone in Millbrook, and more importantly, everyone talked to him. Bartenders were like priests. People confessed things they'd never tell their families. "Rafe," I said carefully, "you ever hear any gossip about Vanton Logistics?" His expression darkened. "That bunch of crooks? What do you want to know?" "Just curious about their reputation." Orion Vanton's been coming in here occasionally, trying to schmooze the local business owners. Acts like he owns the town. But word is his company's in trouble. My cousin works for their accounting firm. Says there's money missing and nobody wants to talk about it. Sid and I exchanged glances. Missing how? Project budgets that don't match actual expenses. Invoices for work that was never done. Classic embezzlement stuff, but spread out over multiple departments, so it's hard to trace. Who would be responsible for those project budgets? Project managers mostly. Poor folks probably don't even know they're being set up to take the blame. Unless they did know. Unless they were willing participants. I thanked Rafe and headed home, my mind racing. Helena wasn't just cheating on me. She was potentially involved in corporate fraud. And if Sid was right about Vanton's history, she was probably being manipulated just like his ex-wives. Or maybe she was a willing partner in crime. Either way, I now had leverage. Back home, Helena's BMW was in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, eating takeout Chinese food and scrolling through her phone. "How was the presentation?" I asked. "Exhausting, but we got it sorted out." She didn't look up from her phone. What was it about? Budget reconciliation for the Morrison shipping contract. Really boring stuff. I happened to know the Morrison shipping contract had been completed 6 months ago. Helena was getting sloppy with her lies. Sounds complicated. It is. That's why they pay me the big bucks. She finally looked at me, and there was that smile again. How was your day? Fix anything important? Just Mrs. Patterson's furnace. Nothing as important as budget reconciliation. Right. Back to her phone. I watched my wife eat her dinner and lie to my face, and something cold settled in my chest. Not anger. Anger was hot and stupid. This was calculation. Helena had been playing me for months, thinking I was too dumb to notice. Time to show her how wrong she was. I'm going to shower, I announced. Okay. She didn't even acknowledge me leaving the room. In the bathroom, I turned on the water and pulled out my phone. Text to Sid. Need to accelerate the timeline. Can you get me everything on their next meeting? His response came immediately. Already on it. Tomorrow night, same place. I'll have cameras ready. Tomorrow night, I was going to get the evidence I needed to destroy both of them. Wednesday morning brought clear skies and Helena's usual routine. Coffee, mirror check, that practiced smile. But today, I was ready for her. Another late night tonight? I asked as she gathered her things. Probably. We're still dealing with the fallout from yesterday's presentation. Thought you said it went well. A flicker of annoyance crossed her face. It did, but there are always follow-up issues you wouldn't understand. Try me. Helena stopped and looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. Beck, I know you mean well, but my job involves complexities that your maintenance work doesn't prepare you for. It's not your fault. We just operate in different worlds. There it was, the condescension delivered with a smile. Helena had perfected the art of making insults sound like gentle explanations. You're right, I said. I'm just a simple guy who fixes simple problems. Exactly. She seemed relieved that I wasn't pushing back. I'll try not to be too late. Another lie, delivered with another smile. After she left, I called my crew and told them to handle the day's appointments without me. Then I drove to Sid's place, a converted garage behind his house where he ran his investigation business. Sid had 3 computer monitors running and was surrounded by camera equipment. Morning, sunshine. Ready to catch some cheaters? More than ready. What's the plan? Simple surveillance op. I've got long-range cameras that'll give us clear footage, and I managed to plant a listening device near their usual meeting spot yesterday. How'd you manage that? Posed as a city inspector checking the warehouse electrical systems. Amazing what people will let you do when you carry a clipboard and wear a hard hat. I had to admire his thoroughness. What about audio quality? Crystal clear from 30 feet. We'll get everything. Conversation, background noise, the works. And it's all legal? The parking lot's public property, and the warehouse is abandoned. We're not breaking any laws. We spent the morning reviewing the surveillance site and testing equipment. The warehouse district was perfect for our purposes. Isolated, minimal traffic, and multiple vantage points for cameras. By afternoon, we were in position. Sid had set up his equipment in an abandoned office building across from the warehouse, giving us a clear view of the parking lot where Helena and Orion conducted their meetings. They usually show up around 7, Sid said, adjusting his camera settings. Helena arrives first, then Vanton about 5 minutes later. How romantic. Yeah, real touching. You okay with this? Once we start recording, there's no going back. I thought about Helena's smile that morning, the casual way she'd dismissed me, the months of lies and manipulation. I'm ready. At 6:55 p.m., Helena's BMW pulled into the lot. She parked in the same spot as the previous footage, then sat in her car checking her phone. Even from a distance, I could see she'd changed clothes since leaving for work. Gone was the conservative business suit, replaced by a dress I'd never seen before. New outfit for her boyfriend, Sid observed. Classy. 5 minutes later, Orion's Mercedes arrived. He was a big man, probably 6'3", with the kind of tan that came from expensive vacations. He wore a suit that cost more than most people made in a month. Helena got out of her car immediately and walked straight to him. No hesitation, no looking around to see if anyone was watching. They embraced like lovers who'd been apart for weeks instead of hours. "Getting all this?" I asked. "High-definition video and clear audio. Your lawyer's going to love this." Through his listening device, we could hear their conversation clearly. "How was your day?" Orion's voice was deep, confident. "Long. Beck's been asking more questions lately." "About what?" "Work stuff. He wanted to know about the presentation yesterday." "What did you tell him?" "That it was complicated and he wouldn't understand." "Same thing I always tell him." They both laughed. The sound made my hands clench into fists. "Poor Beck," Orion said mockingly. "Must be hard being married to someone so much smarter than you." "He's not stupid, just limited. Small-town guy with small-town thinking. Unlike me. Unlike you." They kissed again, longer this time. When they separated, Orion's expression had turned serious. "We need to talk about the Morrison account." "What about it?" "The audit's been moved up. They're starting next week instead of next month." Helena's body language changed immediately. She stepped back, tension visible in her posture. "How much time does that give us?" "Not enough. We need to clean up the paper trail faster than planned." "Orion, I've already moved as much as I can without raising red flags. If I transfer any more money, you'll transfer whatever I tell you to transfer." His voice had turned cold. "Remember who's taking the real risk here." "The real risk? I'm the one whose name is on those budget reports. If they trace the missing money, they won't. Not if you do your job properly." I was getting it all on tape. Helena wasn't just having an affair. She was actively involved in embezzling money from Vanton Logistics. And from the sound of things, Orion was setting her up to take the blame. "I don't like how fast this is moving," Helena said. "You don't have to like it. You just have to do it." Orion moved closer to her, and his voice became softer, but somehow more threatening. "Besides, it's too late for second thoughts now. We're in this together." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've already transferred enough money to make you an accessory. If this falls apart, we both go down. But if you keep your nerve, we'll both come out rich." Helena was quiet for a long moment. "How rich?" "Rich enough to disappear. New identities, new lives. Somewhere tropical where they don't have extradition treaties." "And Beck?" "What about him? You planning to invite your husband on our romantic getaway?" More laughter. Cold, calculating laughter. "No," Helena said finally. "I just want to make sure he doesn't get hurt in all this." "Beck won't get hurt as long as he stays ignorant, which shouldn't be difficult considering." They talked for another 20 minutes, working out details of their embezzlement scheme. Helena would make 3 more large transfers over the next week, moving money from various project accounts into offshore accounts Orion had established. Once the audit began, they'd wait for the investigation to focus on Helena, then disappear with the stolen money. "She's planning to run away with him," I said quietly. "And leave you holding the bag for anything they can't pin on her," Sid replied. "These people are poison, Beck." When Helena and Orion finally separated, they made plans to meet again Friday night to finalize their escape plan. Then, Helena kissed him goodbye and walked back to her car. I watched my wife drive away, knowing she'd come home and lie to my face about working late. She'd probably even apologize for missing dinner. "What now?" Sid asked. "Now we go to war." Helena came home at 10:30 p.m. with another story about budget meetings and difficult clients. She apologized for missing dinner, kissed my cheek, and went straight to her laptop to finish some work. I sat in my workshop until midnight, listening to the audio recording from her meeting with Orion. Every word was clear, every detail of their scheme documented. Helena wasn't just cheating, she was stealing, lying, and planning to disappear with her boyfriend while leaving me to deal with the aftermath. But I had something they didn't know about: evidence. Thursday morning, I called Dean Caro, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. Dean had a reputation for being ruthless, expensive, and extremely effective. He'd handled several high-profile divorces in the area, including the messy split between the mayor and his wife 2 years ago. "Beck Trenwall," I said when his secretary put me through. "I need to see you today. It's urgent." "What kind of case are we talking about?" "Divorce. But it's complicated." "They always are. Can you be here at 2? Dean's office was in downtown Millbrook, occupying the top floor of the oldest building on Main Street. The man himself was exactly what I'd expected: mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit, and the kind of confident handshake that suggested he'd never lost a case he cared about winning. "Tell me everything," he said, once we were seated in his office. I laid out the whole story: Helena's affair, the embezzlement scheme, their plan to disappear together. I showed him Sid's surveillance footage and played portions of the audio recording. Dean listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Mr. Trenwall, in 25 years of practicing divorce law, I've rarely seen a case with this much ammunition. Your wife has handed you everything you need to not only win the divorce, but potentially send her to prison. I don't want her in prison. I just want her out of my life and away from my money." Understandable. But the criminal evidence gives us tremendous leverage. Helena will agree to any settlement terms we propose rather than face embezzlement charges. "What about Orion Vanton?" Dean's smile turned predatory. "Mr. Vanton presents an interesting opportunity. He's the primary architect of this scheme, which means he's facing serious federal charges if this comes to light. That gives us leverage over him as well." "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that makes powerful men very cooperative. Vanton won't want his embezzlement scheme exposed any more than your wife does." We spent the next hour planning strategy. Dean would prepare divorce papers demanding a complete financial disclosure and an unequal division of assets in my favor. He'd also prepare a criminal complaint documenting the embezzlement scheme, which we'd hold in reserve. "The key is timing," Dean explained. "We want to serve your wife when she's most vulnerable and least prepared to fight back." "When would that be?" "Right after she makes her next money transfer. She'll be terrified of getting caught, which makes her more likely to accept our terms without a fight." I left Dean's office feeling better than I had in months. For the first time since discovering Helena's betrayal, I felt like I had some control over the situation. That evening, Helena came home at her usual time with another story about work problems. She seemed more nervous than usual, checking her phone constantly and jumping at unexpected sounds. "Everything okay?" I asked during dinner. "Fine, just stressed about this audit next week." "What audit?" Helena froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "Internal audit. Routine stuff. Nothing interesting." Another lie, but this one revealed something important. Helena was scared. The audit was real, and it was making her nervous about getting caught. "Sounds stressful." "It is. I might need to work this weekend to get everything ready." "More time with Orion, no doubt." "Whatever you need to do." After dinner, Helena disappeared into her home office to prepare reports. I could hear her on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. She was probably coordinating with Orion about their next money transfer. Friday morning brought rain and Helena's increasingly familiar routine of lies and fake smiles. But today she seemed different, more animated, almost excited. "Big day?" I asked. "Potentially. If everything goes well, this audit might not be as bad as we thought." Translation: if their final money transfer went smoothly, they'd be ready to disappear. "That's great news." "It is." She actually seemed happy for the first time in weeks. "I might be very late tonight. Don't wait up." "I won't." Helena kissed my cheek and headed for the door. At the threshold, she turned back and gave me that smile, the one I'd been seeing every morning for months. Except tonight, it would be the last time. After she left, I called Sid. "Tonight's the night. Are you ready?" "Camera equipment's already in position. This time we'll get everything in 4K resolution." "And Dean?" "Standing by with the paperwork. Once we confirm they've made the money transfer, he'll file the divorce papers first thing Monday morning." I spent the day in my workshop, trying to keep busy while waiting for evening. Every few hours, I'd check our bank account online, watching for any unusual activity. At 3 p.m., I noticed a new transfer. $5,000 moved to that same mystery account Helena had been using. She was accelerating the timeline. By 6 p.m., I was in position with Sid, watching the warehouse parking lot through high-powered cameras. Helena arrived early, pacing nervously beside her car while talking on her phone. "She's anxious," Sid observed, "probably worried about getting caught." Orion's Mercedes pulled up exactly at 7. He got out slowly, looking around the parking lot more carefully than usual. Even from a distance, I could see he was tense. "They know something's wrong," I said, "or they're just nervous about making their final move." Helena and Orion met in the middle of the parking lot, embracing briefly before launching into intense conversation. Through Sid's listening device, their voices came through clearly. "Did you make the transfer?" Orion asked immediately. $5,000 this afternoon. That brings the total to $47,000. "Good. I moved it to the Cayman account an hour ago." "So we're really doing this?" "We're already doing it, Helena. There's no backing out now." They walked toward the warehouse, disappearing from our camera's view, but the listening device picked up their conversation as they continued talking inside. "When do we leave?" Helena asked. "Sunday night. I've got plane tickets to Miami, then a connection to Grand Cayman. By Monday morning, we'll be on a beach drinking cocktails, while the auditors are trying to figure out where their money went." "What about Beck?" "What about him? He'll be fine. Probably better off without you, honestly." Silence for a moment. Then Helena's voice, smaller than usual. "He's not a bad person. He's not a rich person either. You made your choice, Helena. Don't get sentimental now." "I'm not getting sentimental. You just what? Want to stay married to a maintenance worker who will never give you the life you deserve?" "No, you're right. I made my choice." They emerged from the warehouse 20 minutes later, both looking more relaxed. Orion handed Helena an envelope. "Plane tickets and new identification," he said. "Don't lose them." "I won't." "And Helena? After Sunday night, there's no contact with your old life. That includes Beck. You understand?" "I understand." They kissed goodbye, and Helena walked back to her car. She sat behind the wheel for several minutes, staring at the envelope Orion had given her. "She's having second thoughts," Sid said. "Too late for that now." I watched my wife drive away, carrying plane tickets and fake identification for her new life with her boyfriend. In 3 days, she planned to disappear with stolen money, leaving me to face whatever consequences remained. But Helena had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated her husband. "Did you get everything?" I asked Sid. "Every word, every gesture, every detail of their escape plan. Your lawyer's going to love this." "Good. Because Monday morning, Helena's going to get the surprise of her life." Helena came home Friday night with the best mood I'd seen from her in months. She was practically glowing, humming while she made herself a drink and settling onto the couch with unusual contentment. "Good day at work?" I asked. "Very good. I think everything's going to work out perfectly." "That's wonderful news." She looked at me with something approaching affection. "Beck, I know things have been difficult between us lately." "Have they?" "You know they have, but I want you to know that whatever happens, I hope you'll be happy." "Whatever happens," she was already saying goodbye. "That's very thoughtful of you, Helena." "I mean it. You deserve to be with someone who appreciates you." The irony was stunning. Helena was giving me permission to find happiness while planning to steal our money and disappear with her boyfriend. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." We spent the evening watching television like a normal married couple, Helena curled up beside me on the couch. If I hadn't known about her plans, I might have thought we were working through our problems. Instead, I was watching my wife perform her final deception. Saturday morning, Helena announced she needed to spend the day organizing files for the audit. She left the house early and didn't return until evening, claiming she'd been at the office all day. I spent Saturday with Sid, reviewing our evidence and coordinating with Dean Caro. We had everything we needed: video footage, audio recordings, financial records, and documentation of Helena's embezzlement scheme. "She's going to try to leave tomorrow night," I told Dean during our phone call. "Perfect. We'll be ready for her." Sunday morning brought Helena's final performance. She woke up early, made coffee for both of us, and sat at our kitchen table with unusual quietness. "Beck," she said finally, "I need to tell you something." Here it comes, I thought. The big goodbye speech. "I've been thinking about us, about our marriage." "Okay. We both know things haven't been working. We want different things, have different goals. Do we? You know we do. You're happy with your simple life, your maintenance business, your small-town routine. But I need more." "More what?" "More everything. More excitement, more opportunity, more life." I nodded thoughtfully. "And you think you've found that somewhere else?" Helena's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think you've already decided what you want. And it's not this marriage." She relaxed, probably thinking I was making her confession easier. "You're right. I have decided. I think we should separate, Beck, maybe permanently." "When were you thinking of starting this separation?" "Soon. Very soon." "Tonight?" Another flash of surprise. "How did you—" "Yes, tonight. I think a clean break would be best for both of us." "And where will you go?" "I have options." I stood up from the table and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at our backyard. 3 years of marriage, and it was ending with lies and theft. "Helena," I said without turning around, "do you remember what you told me on our wedding day?" "Beck, I don't think—" "You said you'd never lie to me. That honesty was the foundation of any good marriage." Silence behind me. "You also said you'd never do anything to hurt me deliberately." "Beck," I turned around to face her, "so I'm curious about how you'd explain the past few months." Helena's face had gone pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The late nights at work that weren't actually work. The mysterious money transfers from our account. The meetings in warehouse parking lots." She stood up quickly, knocking over her coffee cup. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been protecting myself from my lying, cheating wife." "You have no right—" "I have every right. This is my marriage too, Helena. Or was, until you decided to steal our money and run away with your boyfriend." Helena's mouth opened and closed without sound. She looked like someone who'd been caught in a lie so enormous that denial was impossible. "How long have you known?" she asked finally. "Long enough. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" "Beck, I can explain." "You can try." Helena sat back down, her composure completely shattered. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen?" "Orion and we just connected. He understands my ambitions, my goals." "Your goal of stealing money from his company?" "It's not stealing. It's just redirecting resources. To your personal bank account. To accounts that will give us a better life." "Us," meaning you and Orion. "Yes." At least she was finally being honest. "And what about me, Helena? What happens to your husband while you're living your better life?" "You'll be fine. You always are." "Will I be fine when the FBI investigates the missing money and discovers my wife was involved?" Helena's face went white, They won't what? Investigate embezzlement? Track financial records? Helena, you've been moving stolen money through our joint accounts. When they audit Vanton Logistics, they're going to trace every transaction. Orion lied. He's been setting you up to take the blame from the beginning. I could see the realization dawning on her face. No, he wouldn't do that. Wouldn't he? Helena, you're not his first affair, and you won't be his last, but you might be his first accomplice to go to prison. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that your choices have consequences. The doorbell rang. Helena looked at me with panic in her eyes. Are you expecting someone? She asked. Actually, yes. I walked to the front door and opened it to find Dean Caro standing on my porch, briefcase in hand. Good morning, Beck. Is Mrs. Trenwall available? Come on in, Dean. Helena, I'd like you to meet my attorney. Helena stood frozen in our kitchen as Dean entered and set his briefcase on our table. Mrs. Trenwall, Dean said formally, I'm here to serve you with divorce papers and to discuss some irregularities in your financial activities. Beck, what is this? This is me taking control of my life. Dean opened his briefcase and removed a thick stack of documents. Mrs. Trenwall, these are divorce papers requesting an immediate separation and an unequal division of assets. We're also prepared to file criminal charges related to your embezzlement activities unless you cooperate fully. Criminal charges? Dean placed a digital recorder on the table. We have extensive evidence of your involvement in stealing money from Vanton Logistics. Video surveillance, audio recordings, financial records, everything needed for a federal prosecution. Helena looked at me with something between hatred and desperation. You recorded me? I documented your crimes. There's a difference. Beck, please, we can work this out. We are working it out. You're going to sign these divorce papers, transfer all stolen money back to Vanton Logistics, and disappear from my life permanently. And if I don't, Dean answered for me, then you'll be arrested for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy. You'll spend the next 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Helena collapsed back into her chair, the fight going out of her completely. What about Orion? What about him? I asked. Will you turn him in too? I looked at Dean, who nodded slightly. That depends on how cooperative you are, Helena. Sign the papers, return the money, and disappear quietly. Orion can deal with his own problems. Fight me on this, and I'll make sure the FBI gets everything. Helena stared at the divorce papers for a long time. Finally, she picked up a pen. Where do I sign? 30 minutes later, Helena Trenwall was no longer my wife. She'd signed away any claim to our house, our savings, and my business. She'd also agreed to return every penny of the stolen money and to have no contact with me after leaving our house. What happens now? She asked, as Dean packed up his briefcase. Now you call Orion and tell him your romantic getaway is canceled, I said. Then you pack your things and get out of my house. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Helena went upstairs to pack while Dean and I finalized the paperwork. Through the ceiling, I could hear her on the phone, probably breaking the news to Orion that their scheme had collapsed. She'll be fine, Dean said. Women like Helena always land on their feet. I don't really care where she lands, as long as it's far away from me. An hour later, Helena came downstairs with 2 suitcases. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, looking more like the woman I'd married 3 years ago. Beck, she said quietly. I really am sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. Maybe. But I am sorry it ended this way. It ended the way you chose, Helena. You made every decision that led us here. She nodded and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back one final time. For what it's worth, you're a better man than I deserved. Yes, I am. Helena left without another word, closing the door behind her with a soft click. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the debris of my failed marriage, and realized something surprising. I felt relieved. For months, I'd been living with a woman who'd been lying to me, stealing from me, and planning to abandon me. Now she was gone, and I was free. My phone rang. Sid. How'd it go? It's over. Helena signed everything and left. What about Vanton? I smiled. That's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I'm going to drink a beer and enjoy the silence. Want company? Actually, yes. Come on over. We've got some celebrating to do. For the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow.